Robot Talk is the podcast that sits down with roboticists from around the world and asks them the questions you always wanted answered. Like, what's that robot doing with my data? And how does that thing work? Hello everyone! Welcome to Robot Talk. I'm your host, Claire Asher, and this week we're diving into the complex field of robot security, privacy, and safety with a guest who's been the architect behind privacy-first infrastructure that powers over 40,000 robots operating in airports, schools, warehouses, and shopping malls. But first, I'd like to remind you to subscribe to Robot Talk on your favourite podcast provider to make sure you're the first to hear the latest episodes. Another way to find out about new episodes is the email newsletter, which you can sign up to by going to robottalk.org. And if you sign up as a paid supporter on Patreon, you'll get early access to new episodes before they're released publicly. So, without further ado, it's time for me to introduce this week's guest. I recently had a really interesting discussion with Krystal Mattich from Brain Corp about trustworthy autonomous robots in public spaces. Today, I'm speaking to Krystal Mattich, Senior Director of Security, Privacy and Risk at Brain Corp, whose work focuses on data governance, system security, and privacy compliance for autonomous commercial robots. Hi, Krystal. Welcome to Robot Talk.
Hi, Claire. Thank you so much for having me.
So, first of all, for listeners who might not be familiar, can you tell us a little bit about Brain Corp and what the company does?
Sure. Brain Corp is an autonomous mobile robot software as a service company. In essence, we strive to make the real world work better through solving customer pain points and tasks with robots.
Fantastic. Can you give us some examples of where these mobile robots might be operating?
Sure. Brain Corp is the largest fleet of robots across the globe, servicing public and semi-public commercial spaces. You may see our robots traveling around airports, malls, hospitals, schools, where we partner with original equipment manufacturers to solve customer and enterprise problems, specifically cleaning robots. Inventory scanning robots are the main focus right now. And Brain Corp originally started with a neuroscience background.
Okay, that's really interesting to me. I hadn't made the connection with the company's name, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yes, that's exactly why we were named. We think of our software solution, BrainOS, as the brain in each of the robots.
Mm-hmm.
Part of their technology is the ability for the robot to be trained how to perform a task and then repeat it. And that is how we initially landed in the autonomous space. And we had a really interesting technology set. And the next step was finding use cases to take it to market. And that's how we really ventured into cleaning. When you think of robots out in the world, you look at what types of tasks do we want them to take off of our hands. Mm-hmm. Cleaning is generally one of them. And so finding a way to safely perform cleaning tasks. I don't know if you've seen any of the large commercial cleaning equipment. And we partnered with Tenant, who's been in the business for 150 years,
wow,
making manual cleaning robots. And they approached us and said, hey, what would it look like to partner together and create a robot? And so what Brain Corp does is we work together and find out the right number of sensors and cameras that in combination with the BrainOS software create the brain and cause the manual robot to become autonomous.
Okay. And so, as I mentioned in your intro, your focus is on security and privacy, and the locations that you've mentioned where these mobile robots are operating, public spaces, shops, airports, hospitals, are obviously places where privacy and where the kind of data that the robot is collecting is really critical. So, can you talk us through like the main security and privacy considerations in these kinds of locations?
Yeah, first of all, when robots are out operating in the general public, the number one priority is that you have safe interactions with our robots, so that the robots are aware of their surrounding. They have a footprint and know, hey, when a static or dynamic moving object comes into that footprint, which behavior to take. And the goal is that we have polite robots that respect boundaries and know to pause and allow you to pass or to slightly turn and navigate away from you. And all of this comes through, the placement of the sensors to make sure we are able to detect at the right time and place, and the cameras to be aware of the surroundings and, this is a human. This is an end cap of a shelf. This is a box that's in my way. And so the BrainOS software gives us the ability to perceive, detect, and react.
Okay. I mean, people are quite difficult. They're quite unpredictable. Like if I'm walking through a big open public space like a shopping mall, sometimes it's quite hard to predict where someone's going to walk. Are they going to walk into me? Are we going to walk past each other? I assume that these robots have to deal with these similar kind of questions and calculations.
Yes, it is very important that we are able to accurately detect and take actions based on what we encounter when we're in the field. And so the first step is to stop and assess the surroundings. Sometimes it's enough of a light pause if it is a familiar situation that the robot has encountered before. Mm-hmm. Again, we spend a lot of hours training the software to be able to detect what is coming next and then react accordingly. But when in the instance that it finds a situation it's unfamiliar with, it knows how to ask for help, and we will bring a human in the loop to be involved. But the goal is autonomy that just works is our North Star when we look at the future of robotics and where our technology roadmap is going, that you can drop a robot off in the mall, you can tell it to start the cleaning activity, and it is aware of its surroundings. It can create a map based on what it sees, what it detects, and know where it's been, know where it needs to go next. And then the data that the robot is continually processing, how did I do? Did I perform it accurately? Was it in a timely manner? Do I need to go back? Did I have to navigate around Claire as she was walking next to me and go back? Oh, I missed that spot. I need to turn around and head backward. And so it's been really exciting being a part of the future of ensuring these robots navigate safely and securely in public spaces. And as you mentioned, only collecting what it needs to perform the task that it has been assigned to do. And that's been the fun part of my job.
Yeah, that was going to be my next kind of question, because obviously you have to be collecting data from all the sensors to do the role. And I guess ideally you want to be able to learn from the data to keep getting smarter and better. But at the same time, that's people's data. It's people's faces. It's them walking around. It's whatever the sensor is picking up. How do you approach the privacy issue around the data that the robots collect?
What we've chosen to do at Brain Corp is learn based on what we already know about, humans, like consumers, you and I, how we expect our data to be protected. And a lot of this started with the growth and awareness of the GDPR, in Europe, and the ability to know what is collected, where it goes, who it's shared with, what rights do you have with the data. A lot of this framework was really rooted in privacy by design. Only collect the minimal amount needed to accomplish the task. And then, once that purpose is done, either get rights from the consumer to continue using the data or allow them to have it be removed. And a lot of that is the basis of how I look at robotic data. There is certainly data that the robot needs to make wise decisions, but it doesn't care that Claire was the individual walking by. And there's this interesting area of surveillance and then autonomous navigation. And so a lot of what the privacy regulations ground on is your purpose for processing.
Yeah.
The robot is processing information not to identify you, Claire, to notice this is a human. This human is coming toward me. I need to make sure I navigate around it or stop to see what it's going to do. And so, the right thing to do is only collect, what is needed.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking, well, the places that we've talked about, airports, hospitals, shopping malls, they all have security cameras in them, right? They're already collecting a lot of this visual data. And actually that purpose is to identify you and is to do the things that you've just pointed out the robot doesn't really need. So if people are kind of already comfortable with that kind of surveillance, this is actually much less than that. This is much less invasive and much less personal.
Yes, and that's why we've taken a lot of care to minimize what needs to be collected. And then the robots talk to our operational cloud environment. And at times, a picture might be made available to the operator. Hey, I got stuck. Can you come track me down and help me? And in those circumstances, we apply blurring because to us, to the robot, we don't need to know who it is. And so that is a standard that we at Brain Corp have set, and that we are hoping that others in industry, as we continue to evolve, that other companies in other regions also have this similar expectation. When the purpose for processing is not identification, blur it. No one needs to see it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So last year, Brain Corp launched its Trust Center for Transparent AI Security, and you were centrally involved in its development. So what does the Trust Center do, and why was it important to Brain Corp to launch this initiative?
This was a very exciting project that I was very proud of delivering. Trust and transparency is a cultural aspect of the role that is very deeply rooted for me. I get the privilege to talk to a lot of our customers and partners. And I believe what really sets Brain Corp apart is our culture, is the foundation of security design, privacy by design, and all of the background work that we do to secure a robot when it's born at a factory, ensuring it has a birth certificate, knowing that that is our robot out in the world, up to the information the robot collects and how it's securely stored in our cloud environment and then made available via our mobile app and portal. The Trust Center really gives 365-day, 24/7 awareness of what is our security posture? What does Brain Corp say it does with the information? And you can look at any time. You can also chat with us and ask questions about our offering. And it's really to set us apart that we take the step to be transparent. There's certifications also that we make available that show our status. And I strongly believe in say what we do and do what we say. And the Trust Center is that second aspect of doing what we say. And here, we'll show our work.
Yeah, absolutely. Trust and transparency are topics that come up in my conversations about robotics over and over and over and over again. So it's a really important issue, and I'm glad that Brain Corp is being very open and honest about it.
Yeah, and another design decision that we have made is not needing to know who you are. When you operate the robot, you're not signing in with a username and password. And so taking great care to only collect the minimal amount of information needed for you to have the best experience possible working with our robots. Obviously, there's usage data. You might want to know how the task is performing if you've hired us to do a job in your environment. And we are seeing the bar rise for a lot of our enterprise customer base. When someone purchases and makes the decision to have a robot perform tasks within their facility, it becomes part of their ecosystem. So is it safe? Is it secure? Is it going to cause any weaknesses within my environment? And so I have a lot of conversations with security professionals at our customers, giving them comfort and kind of showing our work, as I said, to help create the trust that creates more demand. Because a lot of these customers, robotics is new, and some of the folks are trying to break into kind of the evolution of there's what's the robot doing? Think of, I guess, the question for you. Have you hired any robots to perform jobs in your home?
I do have a robot vacuum cleaner.
All right. And have you ever thought about, what information is collected by that vacuum in my house? Where does it go? Who is it shared with?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I recently upgraded it to a model that has mapped my house. My previous model just kind of wandered around aimlessly in a random direction and just kind of did its job. Whereas this one's mapped my house, and I'm like, who has that map? And how useful is it to somebody who might have nefarious intentions?
I think about it all the time when you look at all of the Internet of Things devices. I don't know if you have a doorbell camera or...
No, they make me quite nervous.
Well, it's the same things you might be thinking about right now that our customers think about. And so the exciting part of my role is getting to assuade them, have conversations to really explain, what are we collecting? Why? How does it work? And it's really a lot of fun to get to work in robotics. And, we have over 43,000 robots out in the world. So
wow.
Brain Corp's been amazing. The technology is amazing, but the risks are there. And we do have those tough conversations.
So now I have to ask, as someone who works in security and privacy, do you have any of these Internet of Things devices in your home? Do you have a robot vacuum cleaner or anything like that?
I do not. I have ventured into the camera doorbell, but that is outside of my house.
Mm-hmm.
It really comes down to trust. Do I trust the companies?
Yeah.
And I am the woman who reads the terms of service, who reads the privacy policy. And I would encourage all of your listeners in your personal life to do that and to really be sure you know the companies that you're giving your data to, because this is your digital footprint. And a lot of folks, when you download the free mobile app, that's another indicator. Free generally means your data is the product. So how do you feel about the company having your data? Just all really good things to keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, developments in AI are happening at a lightning pace at the moment, and robotics is following suit. How do you think that we can get the balance right so that progress in these technologies doesn't come at the cost of security and privacy and transparency?
It's a really good question. It really is an evolving area. There is no defined playbook in robotics yet. So it leads a lot of the industry personnel in roles like mine needing to learn from what we've seen in the past. And what we've chosen to do at Brain Corp is be sure, privacy by design, security and safety by design. And that starts with product teams, also agreeing with the value as they build and scale these robotics products. Engineers taking what might be a little bit of extra time to do things right from the beginning, to make sure the right anonymization techniques are in place, to make sure retention is properly set. And I think the regulation will follow, and we will all be watching it closely. And my hope is that the regulators focus on outcomes to then give companies the flexibility to meet the outcome in the way that works best for the organization. But it becomes difficult when it's very, very prescriptive, because robotics is it's different, and different use cases, different applications. You have hardware and software and humans all involved. And it's quite a complex system at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't want the regulations to constantly be playing catch up as new technology emerges. Right? You want something, I guess, that's adaptable and robust enough that it can have some longevity.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of led into my final question, which was about policymakers and governments. I mean, obviously, your answer will be US focused. I don't know what's going on in Europe and the UK, but who are the regulators and what are they up to at the moment?
Who are the regulators? I think each country and each industry likely has its own set of regulators, and it really comes down to the companies that are hiring robots to do jobs. And, we're not quite in a world yet with Rosie and the Jetsons, but, when we as consumers start hiring robots to do jobs for us, I believe a lot of the privacy framework and infrastructure that keeps the internet data, as you're surfing the web safe, and the password and login information as you do interactions in your day-to-day, a lot of that same framework will become the new standard, is my guess, in how robotic data is treated. But yeah, it's a really exciting, fascinating space, and there's a lot to come. And I encourage robotic providers and other companies to, learn from what we already know. There's great frameworks from our privacy by design, only keep what is needed to perform the task. That's really going to help ensure that there's a purpose for processing, is what I always come back and ground to. Only collect what you need to perform the task.
Yeah, that's a good motto. I like it. Krystal, it's been lovely chatting to you today. I've been talking to Krystal Mattich from Brain Corp. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoy Robot Talk, please share the podcast, subscribe, and leave a review. And make sure you check out the awesome new Robot Talk merch that I've created by visiting robottalk.org/shop. Next week, I'm chatting to Vikas Enti from Reframe Systems about house building robots. Until then, I've been Claire Asher, and this has been Robot Talk. Robot Talk Season 6 is sponsored by the Hamlin Centre, Imperial College London.